Jesus Christ.
The initial and popular image we have of Martha is that of a worried and distracted woman who was gently corrected by Jesus, as we have heard in today's gospel. And compared to her sister Mary, who, according to Jesus, chose the better part, as if that Martha was lacking in something essential, lacking in depth, if we may say so. But as I read the materials regarding this feast, I came to a point that it is something paradoxical, I think, that the one who was portrayed as lacking in depth is in fact the one who is venerated by the church more today. We do not find any veneration special day of her sister or her brother Lazarus. Yes, there was a veneration before the reform of the liturgy during Vatican II or after Vatican II. But now, we do not have any particular celebration for these. No? Probably because Mary, the sister of Martha, unfortunately was identified with Mary Magdalene in the history. That's why we do not. Later, that's why the church does not have any particular, probably, celebration of her memorial or feast because of her identification with Mary Magdalene. But modern researchers point out that Mary, the sister of Martha, is not the same as Mary Magdalene. Anyway, but I find it paradoxical that the one who was considered, who did not at the beginning chose the better part, is the one being venerated by the church today. No? And aside from the Catholic Church, Martha is also venerated in other churches like the Orthodox churches, the Lutherans, the Anglicans. In fact, Saint Martha is the patroness of some dioceses like the Diocese of Pasig here in the Philippines, or that house where Pope Francis lives now, Santa Marta now in Rome. And the artistic depiction of Martha appear mostly during the so-called Counter-Reformation in the 17th century, when the domestic setting is usually given a realistic depiction. And at times, Martha is taken to represent the active religious, contrasted with the contemplative represented by her sister. But a closer reading of the gospel narratives, where Martha and her siblings appear, we see a beautiful and a realistic image of who should a disciple be. No? Who should be and what should be the image of the disciple of Jesus. And we find, I think, in Martha. Martha and her, the first one, I think, is that any form of discipleship has, or the best form or start of discipleship is that of friendship with Jesus. Martha and her siblings received Jesus in their house. They welcomed him. And commentators would say that probably Jesus was a frequent visitor of their family. And Martha welcomed Jesus with love by providing him the details of hospitality. And surely Jesus must have enjoyed such welcome from friends. It would be, I think, easier to follow the Lord if there is that basic relationship of friendship already. The second point is that Jesus invited her to a deeper form of friendship or relationship, a deeper form of welcoming Jesus. Welcoming him not only in terms of welcoming him in this house, in their house, providing for him, but welcoming Jesus and his message. That, I think, the better part chosen by her sister Mary. In this relationship, the roles are actually inverted. Jesus becomes the host who provides the food that gives eternal life. And Martha and her siblings are the guests of Jesus who offers them the banquet of his word, the banquet of the good news, the banquet of his grace that leads to eternal life. What is essential, I think, is that friendship that existed between Jesus and Martha's family, that they welcomed Jesus with love and expressed that welcome in their own ways. Mary, by attentively listening to Jesus' stories, words, teachings. And Martha welcomed Jesus with the exquisite details of hospitality. Because they welcomed Jesus, that their relationship deepened, and such relationship of openness and friendship that allow Jesus to enrich their life as persons and as followers. We all come from different backgrounds, walks of life, different experiences. But there is one thing very important in our following of Jesus, to be like Martha and her siblings, to open our lives to Christ, to let him in, to welcome him. As we let him into our lives, and he becomes the gracious host who welcomes us in the abundance of his life. This is what we celebrate precisely in the Eucharist. As we open our lives to him, he becomes the great host who fills us with his life, grace, and ultimately salvation. May we become like Martha, who welcomes Jesus into our lives and allow Him to shepherd us into that abundance of God's kingdom. Maybe our capacity for friendship and expressions of our love for God and Jesus are different, maybe lacking like Martha at the beginning. But the important thing is that we have the goodwill, the desire to welcome Jesus. And from there, in our relationship with Him, our friendship, our relationship grows until we come to experience that fullness of life in His banquet. Amen. On this feast of